Hello and welcome to the Arsenal BiteSize Podcast. I'm your host Clayton at ClaytesAFC on Twitter. Something a little bit different today. I've not done one of these solo episodes in a while. I've got a lot of thoughts that I haven't properly formulated, I guess, and opinions on the transfer window, what I think Arsenal need to do, what we're linked with, and I just thought, let me go live, let me talk it through, see where I land. I've done a little bit of homework, which you'll see on a few slides' time, but yeah, no real agenda. I just kind of want to discuss, the types of profiles I think we need, what we need to do. And like I said, I've got these kind of vague thoughts in my head, and I thought, let me just go through, ramble along, and see how they go as we chat through it out loud. So if you're joining in the chat, obviously make yourself known and share your opinions. What do you think Arsenal need to do in the transfer window? I must say I'm contextualizing all of this with the objectives of next season going for another title challenge, progressing further in Europe, and hopefully winning one of the domestic cups. I think we need to do better on, sounds harsh saying do better on all fronts, but I think especially in the Champions League and domestic cups, I think we need to do better, and we can do better, but we need certain things to be able to do that. So first of all, I wanted to start with this graphic, and if you're watching on, if you're listening on audio, it's basically just different categories: goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, forwards. And the ones with question marks are players. So on audio, I've got Ramsdale, Zinchenko, Partey, Smith Rowe, Vieira, and Waneri, Nketiah, and Nelson. So you can already tell the kind of group of them are players that I think we either might sell, or someone in Waneri's case, is he going to be considered part of the first team group? So question marks around them. I think someone like Zinchenko and one of Smith Rowe and Vieira, I don't think we'll sell both Smith Rowe and Vieira. I think we'll keep one. So for the sake of this conversation, just for the ease of the conversation, I'm going to go on the assumption that we keep Vieira and Smith Rowe departs. And for the sake of this Zinchenko is a difficult one, because I think if a reasonable offer came in, I think we'd take him, because I think you look at the profiles we've got there that can play left back, and in no particular order, it is Timber, Tomiyasu, and Kiwior. Even though I don't think Kiwior's a natural left back, I don't think he looks comfortable when he inverts. That period where Ben White was inverting from the right and we kind of flipped the dynamics, and it was then Saliba, Gabriel, Kiwior, and Kiwior was more of like the outer left-sided centre-back. I think he looked really comfortable and was good there. So yeah, I think we're quite stacked at left back, and we're even linked with another left back, right? But anyway, why have I got these categories? So the way I think about the squad is I don't get too fixated on who can play number 6, who can play 8, who can play 10, who can play right, left. I literally look at them as a group. So I think what we're going to need to do anyway is we're going to need another goalkeeper, right? I think it's fair to assume Ramsdale's probably going to go. I don't want this to turn into a valuation podcast. I'm not going to discuss what I think we need to get, what I think we will get. I just think Ramsdale will probably be sold. We'll need to sign a goalkeeper. In defence, I look at that group that's listed there, and it's White, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, Tomiyasu, Kiwior, and Zinchenko. That's 7 defenders there. And again, like I say, I think there's 2 ways I look at this. One is specialist centre-backs. So I think Saliba, Gabriel, they can only really play centre-back, right? Like, they can play central centre-back, they can play as the wide centre-back, but you're not going to see them play inverted fullbacks, this, that. White, Timber, Tomiyasu, Kiwior can do a combination of a few things, and Zinchenko's a bit of a specialist, right? So I look at that as a group that I think is a really nice, balanced group, to be fair. That gives you different profiles, different attributes to do different things. And one thing which I'll touch on in a while, you remember at the start of the season, Gabriel didn't play, right? And obviously there's different narratives, there's different reasons why that might have been, but the facts were he didn't play. And yeah, if I kind of address what some of the narratives were, some thought it was a tactical thing, looking to have one more midfielder on the pitch and lose one defender. So obviously that was the example of Gabriel wasn't in the lineup. Partey was doing the kind of inverting right back role. And there were some people that thought it was tactical, and then there were other things where it's come out and it might have been due to transfer rumours with Gabriel being linked to Saudi Arabia. But one thing I don't want to move away from just yet is the idea that Arteta actually wants to try that next season. I'm not saying like a party inverted right back, but more the principle of just 3 defenders and then your kind of midfield and forwards. Especially if you look at a lot of the problems that this Arsenal group faces, I think more and more there's this kind of invincibility feel about Arsenal, and teams don't actually come and try to play us, and they just park the bus, and that gives us a challenge to try and unlock them. And obviously it makes sense if you've got one less defender on the pitch and you've got one more midfielder in there, then it makes sense, right? So I do think there is a chance we'll go and get a defender anyway, regardless of a Zinchenko leaving. Because I look at White, Saliba, Gabriel, Timber, Tomiyasu, Kiwior, Zinchenko, really healthy group. It gives you a nice variety of profiles. But I do look at it where, I don't know, like Timber and Tomiyasu can play on either side, but it just feels like we're one more short there maybe. And I think if I can jump slides here for a second, I look at this from FBref and minutes played. And this is where I've got, for audio listeners, I've got 2 graphics here. One is all of the players that made an appearance in the Premier League for Arsenal, and the same for Man City in the last season. And it's so interesting when you look at the kind of minutes split and the starts and that kind of data. And I know you can't just compare it black and white because resource-wise, we are up against it. Like you look at people like Calvin Phillips, Matthias Nunes, Jack bloody Grealish, £100 million player there, 10 starts for Man City, 1,000 minutes. Matthias Nunes, I believe he was 50, 60 mil maybe. I might have that wrong, but he wasn't cheap. 7 starts. Calvin Phillips is the obvious kind of famous example, right? I say famous example, it's a bit of a stretch, but he's the one that everyone touts as the example. 50 mil and 93 minutes played. And I think that's the thing I'm looking at with Arsenal this season, which I'll get onto in a second. But if you look at Man City in the defensive area, you look at the spread of the minutes. And this is interesting because I had this kind of narrative in my head before I looked at the data. And the narrative I had was, I feel like Man City go into games and they chop and change defenders quite a lot. Like there'll be the odd game where Ake will come in. There'll be the odd game where Vardy will play. There'll be the odd game where Diaz will play. And don't get me wrong, over the course of a season, like you can see it in the data, Kyle Walker started 30 of their Premier League games, Diaz 28, Akanji 28, Vardy 26, 24. But if you compare that to ours, where Saliba is 38, Ben White 35, Gabriel 34, Zinchenko, who actually really fell out of favour, in my opinion, 20 starts. Like I think that already you can see there's a level there of reliance and dependency that I think we need to move away from. And I'm not one of these people that believes you need to go and rotate exponentially in every game. I think there are periods in the season that the fixture calendar kind of tells you when to rotate. And I think that December period for me where I want to say it was like 7 games in December we had. Obviously, there was a combination of cup tournaments there in the Champions League, domestic cups in the league. And you could see we were running on empty, right? And I think for me, availability was obviously part of it. Like Tomiyasu obviously only started 10 games and he was a huge part in our season running. Kiwior came in and did well, starting 11 games. But I think Tomiyasu's one where in that December period, if he was available, I don't think we would have been starting Zinchenko away at Villa, away at Anfield, right? So that's something that I think I've got in my head in terms of next season, going back to the squad makeup. I want there to be another profile in defender. And obviously, I've bloody missed the elephant in the room. Timber was injured the whole season, right? So I think there was an element of we had our hands tied behind our back. But I would like to share the load a little bit more next season. But in the defensive area, but I think you need to add one more profile. And I can see there's a few comments in the chat. So if it's all right, I'll get to them at the end of this for this format of this pod, if that's all right. But just quickly, so it is Uncle Mike that's in. So afternoon, mate, loving that shirt. Thank you very much. So Boca Juniors, which Uncle Mike kindly got for me on his travels. But yeah, going back to it, like I said, I'm going to answer kind of questions and comments at the end. But I look at White, I look at Timber, I look at Tomiyasu, I look at Kiwior, Zinchenko. They're all brilliant profiles, but I think, yeah, we need one more in there where we can afford to take Saliba or Gabriel out for just 2 or 3 more games. Like I said, I want to get to the point next season where Saliba doesn't have to start 38. And I think if Timber and Tommy were available more this season, we would have seen that, where I think we've got such a variety of profiles in what we can do, where whether we build up in a 3-2 and it's White as one of the outer ones, or if it's Saliba as the central centre-back or the right centre-back, I do think we've got a variety that enables us to do that if we plug in a Timber or Tomiyasu in there. But I still think there's one more profile we can add, especially on the left. Like, I think it's interesting. I obviously see we're linked with so many left backs, right? And I do think, if I'm being quite simplistic about it and I take it at a higher level, looking at Arsenal last season, our right-hand side dynamics are absolutely phenomenal, right? It's almost like autopilot. Like, it's like clockwork. We're going to make things happen. But I think it's fair to say the left-hand side, post-Granit Xhaka, it's not been the most fluid, right? And I do think, ironically, that's something that could be fixed with a good left-back addition. I know Timber played a couple of times there last season, but the fact that he came on against Everton, and Everton was a really interesting game final day of the season, because in the final periods, we were kind of set up very differently tactically, where it was more of like a 2-3, and the 3 was actually Zinchenko, Rice and Timber. So 2 inverted fullbacks, but in the next line, not kind of in that initial 3-2, where we usually have like a midfielder and Rice with one of the fullbacks inverting. It was actually one single midfielder with 2 fullbacks playing higher up. So there's another slide I've got coming up which I think will illustrate that quite nicely. But yeah, I really think so far goalkeeper, like I said, explains itself. I think we'll add one more profile in defender that gives us something different, maybe more of like ironically a profile of a Tierney. I'm not saying to keep a Tierney, because I think we're way past his quality now, but someone that can keep the width, someone that is comfortable going inside and outside, because I think as comfortable as Timber is going inside, I'm not sure, and even with him, he's not just comfortable playing in the kind of first phase. I think he's comfortable in the kind of middle to final third as well. But I really think we'll go for someone that can do what White does. I think essentially a Ben White for the left, someone that can play in the back 3, someone that can tuck into midfield, and someone that can kind of, even in periods, occupy those half spaces, as well as being an outlet on the touchline. So I think that's what we'll add for the left. And I think we'll see Timber, Tomiyasu kind of rotated around. Like, they can play anywhere in the back 4. Literally left back, left centre-back, right back. They can invert. And Timber, more than the others in particular, can play, like I say, in that middle third, in the half space, is really comfortable on the ball. He's got that really nice swivel that he does. So, yeah, Zinchenko's an interesting one. I would not rush to sell him, personally. I think you hear these kind of catchphrases all the time, like market opportunities, right? I think if someone coughed up a lot of money where we could almost make our money back on what we outlaid for Zinchenko, sure, I would take it, because I think he's a very specialist profile, right? I think the versatility that the others give you is unique, and Zinchenko's profile is incredibly unique. But I think now you only really want to play it in a game at home where you're convinced you're going to win the game and have a lot of the ball, and you're not too worried about transition threats. I think when you've got something like that, yeah, if a good deal came in, I would take it. So yeah, I think we'll add another profile or 2 in defenders. But I keep saying profiles, right? It's, again, if I can really drill this point home, for me, I think this Arsenal team has evolved to a tactical level that is so elite that I don't get, and I'll talk about this with the forward group, I don't get fixated on, do we need a number 9? Do we need a right wing of this? I think for me, it's all about what attributes can these players come in and add to this group that we may not already have, or that player is so unique and can add that to this group. And that's where, for me, it's the profiles and attributes I'm looking for. There is someone, can they do what White does, but on the other side? Can they go outside? Can they come inside? Are they comfortable on the ball? What's their recovery pace like? So that's what I think we need in defense. Midfield, I think, is so interesting. Like, you look at that on paper, and for the podcast listeners, I mean, you won't need me to tell you anyway, but I've listed, it's Rice, Odegaard, Jorginho, and then 4 question marks on Partey, Smith Rowe, Vieira, and Nwaneri. And it's interesting, like, we all agree we need a midfielder. I think there's a case to say, do we need two sometimes when I look at that? And Rice is such an interesting one. Like, I need to think how to phrase this, because he's absolutely been like signing of the season. He was arguably our player of the season. Obviously, Odegaard went and did it. But yeah, Rice has been absolutely phenomenal. And the times he single-handedly kind of won us games in midfield. I know he's obviously popped up with last-minute winners, but I do think he's presented a bit of a headache where, if I could almost say, we don't know where he's best. I think like when you play him as a number 8, you get the amazing driving runs, and I think he's quite smart with his ability to create selfless runs and go on the outside, and yeah, just kind of draw. He's like, he says people in the team call him a horse, right? Because the way he gallops. But I think when he's in that number 8 role, you kind of lose his ability to then be a bit closer to the centre. And you see Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals where we kind of got ran through. And that's a game where you really wanted Rice there to stop that. I think if he's in the 8, he sometimes might not be positionally in the best place to recover, depending on the team structure around him. And at number 6, it does feel like he's the best Hoover you can get in world football. But on the ball, he's not the best ball progressor through the lines, in my opinion. And it's not a slight on him. I think he's one of the best in the world at many other things. I just don't think incisive, punchy passes through the lines that we've seen from Thomas Partey the last 18 months is Declan Rice's strength. And I think you do need to pair him with someone that is able to do that. And this is where I find it really interesting, because I think most things I am quite clear on what I think we need to do and what we need to get. The midfield profile is one I really struggle with, if I'm being honest. I think ideal scenario, we would get some, like, and please don't shoot me for saying something like this and dreaming big, but someone like a Musiala, I think, would fit this team like a glove. If you've got Rice there as the 6, you've got one of the fullbacks that's comfortable tucking in next to him, getting on the ball, Musiala and Odegaard just in front of him, I think that works like an absolute glove. And I think midfield dynamics, especially on the left-hand side, just fixed automatically. But I don't know, never say never. I don't think that will happen. But it's interesting. You look at the profiles we're linked with, Onana's, Bruno Guimaraes'. I know a lot of people talk about De Jong. They're quite different in profile. And I almost wonder if Arteta is going to go for someone that is capable of playing a kind of hybrid 6-8 role. And I think the interesting thing is Jorginho's there. If I go back to the other slide I had in terms of minutes played, Jorginho, who I am struggling to find, classic. Jorginho there. He played 921 minutes, and obviously he only really, I'd say, came into the frame second half of the season post-January. Obviously done really well in some big games for us, but I don't think we're going to get more than that next season from him. I think he'll be like a specialist coming, but there were games where him and Rice together looked brilliant, and that's why I get really confused in terms of what profile I think suits this group the best, and it's why I land on the conclusion I think it will be someone of a hybrid. I think Jorginho is someone that's going to contribute in certain game states, and certain tactical oppositions will require more of like a needle threader, someone that can get on the ball, control the tempo like Jorginho does. I think there'll be some games where we want a Declan Rice there and someone else in the number 8, because obviously if you play Jorginho, you're then playing Rice as the 8. And I think there's certain games where that pair works, but there's certain games where you probably want a Rice sitting as a lone pivot, someone to accompany him from an inverted fullback. We may even change this, which I'll talk on in a second, but you want someone that's more of like an Odegaard 8-10. And this is why I think Arteta's going to go for a hybrid. I really don't get wedded to names, just because I think even my limited knowledge of the tactics in modern day football and this Arsenal team is, like I said, limited. I think it's going to go to a stage next season where we're like, what are we watching? Like, do you remember at the start of last season, I said I wasn't fully enthused by what I was watching. I didn't think it was as fluid. Thought dynamics were a little bit off, but you could see it was weaving in some really new key cogs in Rice, Havertz, and obviously I think a lot of pre-season prep would have been done with a Timber there. Partey obviously would have been a big part of the plans. He was injured, so Yeah, I'm not too fussed what we do, and I think I'm kind of at that kind of blind, ignorant point where I do just kind of trust and back whatever Edu and Arteta deem fit. But I'm pretty convinced it'll be someone that's versatile, not a specialist. I don't think it will be a De Jong, and like that's someone on paper I think would be great. Someone like De Jong who can kind of carry the ball, incisive passes. But one thing that makes this Arsenal team one of the best in the world, right? What is De Jong like? I'm not saying he's bad, but I can't confess to know. And I think that's something that we can't overlook. I also don't think Arteta is done with Havertz in that kind of left eight. And again, we may evolve from this 4-3-3, left eight, right eight. But I think the principle of play of having a midfielder arrive from deep to crash into the box is something I don't think he's done with at all yet. And that will be interesting to see in terms of profiles he goes for. So yeah, midfield I think is an interesting one. I can see it being anyone that, from a variety of someone that's a lone six to kind of free up Rice to do a combination of things. Because like I said, there's some games you want him as an 8, some as a 6. I don't think you want to pigeonhole him yet. I can see it being someone that comes in as an 8. I can understand the links to a Bruno Guimaraes who can do both. Can also see it being more of an 8-10 in Musiala. Not him, but like that profile. And I think the other thing is I get so relaxed because I don't have 1% of the knowledge of players that exist that can fit these profiles. And you look at Benjamin Sesko, right? Like, again, I don't get attached to names. I think that we've seen it when we wanted Mudryk. We got Trossard. When we wanted Lisandro Martinez, we got Zinchenko. Like, there's other examples that have escaped my mind right now. But whatever you want, there's always someone else that can do it. Unless it's, of course, like a Declan Rice, who's one of the best in the world in this position. But you get the drift. So I'm very relaxed about it. But midfield, yeah, I don't know. Like, but I think Partey will go. So it'll be interesting if we is there another Partey type profile out there? Is that what Anana could be with coaching? I'm not sure I rate him on the ball personally that much, but that's something that could be developed with coaching, I think. Like I said at the start, I think Smith Rowe, Vieira, one of them will go. If I had to put money on it, I'd say Smith Rowe is sadly going to go. PSR, world, homegrown player, straight up money on the books. Vieira, it was a £35 million investment, which we've not really seen consistently yet. And Waneri, I think, again, if you look at minutes played, I don't know, like Oscar Bob at Man City last season, 302 minutes. Can Waneri get something like that? And you look at ours last season, and this isn't my own opinion, but it's something that I've heard that really resonates strongly with me. And it was Clive on the Arsenal Vision podcast, I think. I'm not going to say it word for word because I might get it wrong, but if I can paraphrase it, it was along the lines of, if you look at the minutes that a Smith Rowe, a Vieira, a Nelson all played, and add in Nketiah there, who obviously got 1,082 minutes, but Jesus was injured for a large part of that when he was starting, right? He obviously started 10 games in total in the Premier League for us. But if you look at those players and the amount of minutes they had, and Smith Rowe with his 3 Premier League starts, Vieira with his 2, Nelson with his 1, can you make the squad leaner but add more quality to it? And I absolutely think you can. Can we get rid of Nelson, Nketiah, and then one of Smith Rowe and Vieira and add a profile that is maybe a 50-60 million pound quality player that can go in? Like, look at Man City's squad there, like maybe not a Matthias Nunes, but look at their Dokus, their Kovacic's, Doku and Kovacic's are probably the 2 best examples of their players that have very useful profiles and are very talented that can contribute in certain game states. And look at their minutes played. Doku started 18 games, 1,595 minutes. Kovacic started 16 games, 1,551. If you look at our squad, it's a lot of 3,000 pluses and then a lot of like high-end 2,000s. And the ones in between, I think that they're spot on. The ones in between the 1,500, 2,000, like Zinchenko, Trossard, Jesus. But we need to get a couple more, I think, of that level. And that's where I get we'll touch on the forwards in a second, but I get so relaxed about this idea of, can we add another top quality profile to the forward group? I'll touch on whether it's a number 9 or a wide forward in a minute, but I get so relaxed because look at Martinelli, 2,019 minutes, Trossard, 1,649, Bukayo Saka, 2,919. Like, there's enough minutes to spread around. And you add in the Champions League where there's going to be extra fixtures. I just think Man City, as much as I despise them and everything, how they've kind of come into where they are, there's huge ethical questions. With what they've got available, I think they absolutely nail it. And again, you can't be black and white. They've got a £200 million bunch of players there in Nunes, Nunes, Grealish, and Phillips. So you can't quite compare. But that's where I think we need to get to. And I think going back, can we make the squad a little bit leaner? Give more minutes to Iwaneri, supplement that with a player that can come in and contribute more minutes, add more quality, take the load of some others, and similar with the defensive conversations I mentioned. So there's a theme here. It's all about adding. You hear about floors and ceilings all the time, right? I think for me, it's raising the floor. For me, like there's a starting 11, 12, 13 in this squad that I think are top tier. But I do have concerns with when you look at Man City, and I said Diaz will sometimes not play, Akanji will sometimes not play, Stones will go a few games, Grealish is sat on the bench. I do feel like they don't feel the disruption of rhythm as much as I think Arsenal do when we take out one key cog. I do feel like there is still a very clear first string 11. And when you take out one cog, you can really see the quality drop off. And maybe not the quality, but the rhythm, the fluidity. I think a lot of that is we've outgrown a lot of our squad options quicker than we thought. I think someone like Smith Rowe, it's going to be brutal, but we know what he's capable of. But do we? Do we know what post-injury Smith Rowe is capable of? I'm not sure. Like, great player when he changed our worlds when we were going and trying to solidify ourselves as a top 6 team, and then we obviously kind of exceeded that quickly. But I think the drop-off is huge for quite a lot of them, and that's a concern I've got, if I'm being honest. I do think the drop-off in positions, when you change one or two, it does seem to drop off quite a lot, and I think that's something that we need to address. And I'm very relaxed about signing profiles and quality players that are good enough to go and supplement the first 11 that aren't going to start every game, because I think there is an opportunity there to reduce the load on some of our existing key players and give more minutes to someone else in the squad. And I'm not saying they're the existing players. Like I said, it's kind of what Clive was saying. Lean out the squad, add more quality, share the load, and give a chance to someone like a Iwaneri as well. It just has to be like Oscar Bob. 2 starts, 302 minutes, but 14 appearances. He obviously contributed massively, winning final goal against Newcastle, right? There's moments like that I think we can get smarter in. Spoiler for the next slide. So yeah, I think Partey's going to go. I think one of Smith Rowe Vieira will go, and would not be surprised if we had 2 midfield profiles. Forwards, this is the talk of the town. Do we need a number 9? I'm going to be... Okay, so... I don't get fixated on whether we need a number 9 or not either, because again, I look at that group. I think with the midfield, I think we're light. I look at Rice, Odegaard, Jorginho as the 3 that I definitively think will be here next season, and then add in a Vieira, Iwaneri, one more profile. Like, okay, there's a couple there that will do a job. A phenomenal job at 6, one of the best 8s we've got, and then someone that can hopefully come in. In the forwards area, I think we've got quite a nice group, actually, in terms of the versatility. I think you look at, let's just read through them. Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus. I'm excluding Nketiah and Nelson for the sake of this conversation, but I think there you've got profiles across the front 3, left, right, centre, that are phenomenal. Like, Havertz's profile is so unique. And not only so unique as a centre forward, but also if we want to play him off a striker as well, his ability to run in behind, play as a natural centre forward, a false 9, crashing into the box from a midfield position. Saka, we know his quality and ability. Don't need to say anything about him. Martinelli, Trossard, I like the variety they give us. I think Martinelli will come back a lot stronger next season. I think that's the thing. Not everything is always down to recruitment. You can get better through coaching, especially with how young these players are, right? I don't think any of us would have expected the season Martinelli just had, but it's normal. He's young. The only way is up from there, right? So, and Jesus, I think, do I want Gabriel Jesus starting 38 games for us? No, but if he's obviously doing his rehab, We've seen what he can do in moments. I've said a lot in the Champions League that I think we're a fantastic structural, systematic team. But in my opinion, we lack, it sounds mental to say, but like we lack individual brilliance that can generate things out of moments and things out of nothing. Like you've seen, you need in the Champions League. Players that are able to generate variance. I mean, that's gold dust. Like I'm talking Leao's, Musiala's. Like you saw Musiala against us, especially at the Allianz, the way he would just swivel, run away from Jorginho, like drag your team up the pitch. Rice is capable of doing that, but we need more. Like obviously, we got knocked out in the quarterfinal, right? So, yeah, I look at the forward group and I think it's really nice. And this, I don't get too wedded to. Do we need a number 9? I just think we absolutely need a profile that can supplement that group that has pace, power, that, to be honest, obviously they can't just be a pace and power merchant. They have to be good at football. But someone that can really, picture this scenario where like chasing a game, let's just say it's Havertz, Saka, Martinelli. I don't know about you guys, but when Trossard comes off the bench, I don't really have that fear factor. Jesus sometimes I get excited by, especially like Bayern Munich game. He obviously, when he kind of went on that wavy dribble, I thought he was great. But someone that can just, I don't know, grab the game by the scruff of the neck if something's not going right. Because as much as I love Saka, I don't think he's the guy to do that. Not a slight on him. It's just not something I see. I think Havertz can do it. I think Martinelli is absolutely capable of doing that with more coaching and as he develops. But I look at that group and I think there is one profile missing there, and it's that kind of superstar individual talent player that can go in, grab the game by the scruff of the neck, go and terrify a fullback, generate moments out of nothing. And that's what I look at it as a group. I think if we've got Havertz, Saka, Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus, I don't think that's enough to compete on multiple fronts, win a title, go further in the Champions League, win a domestic cup. But suddenly you add in one profile that is, and here's the key thing for me, has to be of the level of a Bukayo Saka. I'm not saying it has to be his backup or play just in the right. I mean, has to be first 11 quality. I'm not talking about backups here. For me, this isn't a go and get someone of a Trossard who is like, obviously really good value for money, will contribute goals. I think it's someone needs to contribute more than what Trossard does in all-round gameplay. And I don't care about having a 70, 80 million pound player on the bench because, like I say, when you go and look at the minute split, there is enough minutes to spread the load. I think very differently about squad management now than I did a few years ago. I don't really think in first 11s. I think and I know historically Arteta probably doesn't rotate as much as we want, but I do think it's largely because of the quality and the drop-off that's there. I think if you add one more profile to that group that is of the level that we know we've got already and better, I think we'll see it a lot more. And I would love to get to a point where I'm comfortable with 2-3 games Bukayo Saka not playing. Like how Man City will go 2-3 games, Bernardo won't play. 2-3 games, Foden won't play. A few games, Alvarez won't play. I don't think they bat an eyelid. I really don't. Obviously, they've all got their favourites, but I really think we're lacking someone with, incredible pace and power and the ability to generate moments in the final third. And that's what I think we can add that can take us to the next level. And that's why I think you can get that profile of player that can do it on the left, can do it on the right, can do it down the middle. I think we'll go for someone that is a bit versatile, like someone like an Isaac. Oh my God. Like I don't get wedded to names because like I've said, I think there's always someone that can do what you want down a pecking order. Like there's plan A, B, C, D, right? But realistically, when we're at the level where Arsenal is now, the pool of players that we're looking at is a lot smaller. There's not many people that can come in and kind of be of the level and be better. So that's why I'm quite relaxed. I'd rather not go and get another Trossard with respect, because then I think, are we cutting ourselves short with what we can do going forwards? But you never know. Could then look to sell one of Trossard, Jesus next summer, right? And powering the upgrades. But yeah, that's why I'm relaxed about, is it a centre forward? Is it a wide forward? The one thing I absolutely know and think we need, in my opinion, obviously it's just my opinion, more firepower in the final third. I don't care if it's a centre forward or wide forward. I just think we need another player that is of that level that can come in and absolutely bolster that squad. So if I had to summarise what I think we need, it's basically the same summer as last season. I think we're going to get another goalkeeper. I think we'll get a... Do you know what? And even I can see it being identical to last summer, sorry. I can see us spending maybe not 100 million, but a lot of money on a guy like a Declan Rice profile who's going to be like the superstar marquee signing. I can see us spending a 50 to 70 million on a Havertz type player that is coming in to be a big player for the group. Maybe the midfielder, maybe the wide forward or centre forward I speak about, someone that can come in and supplement the group. And I can see the defender being like a Timber level signing of like value, profile, perhaps. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. But absolutely, I think it's goalkeeper, absolutely one forward who can do hopefully anything across the front three that is of a higher level than we've bought before, and can come in at an equivalent level to some of the best we've got there. And then midfielders, yeah, I think we're light in midfield, so another one there, as well as a defender. Tactics. So I spoke a lot there about minutes, right? And I touched on at the start of the season, start of the episode, this idea that maybe Arteta's not quite done with the kind of just three defenders. And forgive me, I've got this graphic on screen and I can't remember who I saw it from on Twitter, but I remember I saved it months ago on my phone because I wanted to do a pod about it. And if you just look at it, so for audio listeners, it's a very nerdy tactical diagram. But for those of you that listen to me regularly, you know I love this stuff. But it's I'm not going to talk formations. I'll just describe profile. So it's a graphic with a sweeper keeper, so we know that. It's got three defenders, a wide centre-back, a central centre-back, and a wide centre-back. It's got a deep-lying playmaker 6, and then it's got 2 8s. It's called one of them as a quarterback. It's then got a second striker with the standard front three of 2 wide forwards and a striker. If you think about how we played in periods against Forest, I'm not saying that game was the blueprint of how we should, but I think there's a lot of synergies with this in terms of we obviously had just 3 defenders on the pitch in Timber, Saliba and White. And again, if you look at the profiles I've spoken about before, Saliba and Gabriel can both do the central centre-back and wide centre-back. Your Timbers, Tomiyasu's, Whites can be wide centre-backs. I reckon a couple of them can probably be central centre-backs too. If you're looking at the kind of quarterback role there, which sounds so cringe to say, but kind of left 8, I can see a Timber doing that, stepping into midfield. I can see a White doing that. I can't see Tomiyasu playing that in this system, but those players that are capable of stepping not just into midfield next to the pivot, but beyond that and going into that kind of middle to final third area. Like you've seen it with White when we flipped dynamics in that January to March period. White was rotating with Odegaard and Saka in terms of who was holding the width, who was in the right half space, who was in the pivot next to Rice or Jorginho. I can really see the logic behind this. You've then got your deep line playing 6, and sometimes that 6 will be a Jorginho with Rice in that quarterback role where, and again, something that Clive's spoken about as well is this idea that maybe we won't invert from fullback anymore. Maybe it is someone inverting from centre-back. So imagine if Rice is there as that deep line playing 6 and he's inverting because he can drop and play as a centre-back. Suddenly your structure is more secure, that you don't have this vacant space that everyone tries to attack us with when Zinchenko typically inverts from the left into centre, right? When your structure is set, so it's inverting from the central area and you've got a compact centre, you're much less likely to get penetrated, right? I mean, obviously, we saw City won a treble kind of doing that. So I think that's one to keep an eye on. But even in this, you've got the ability to have like a second striker there whose profile, like Havertz, works like fits like a glove with a centre forward in front of him, whether that's Jesus, someone else. I don't know. I just saw this and I was like, I don't know. I can really see the logic behind this and what we tried to do, because if you reverse engineer it from why are we doing this, it's because we face a lot more deep blocks, right? And you have to get clever and creative. Teams pack out the middle against us, they force us wide, they overload us, it's doubles, triples, ups. Like, I don't want to bore you, we all know what we face. But by doing this, you then give yourself a different option. And I'm not saying the Forest game was the blueprint, but that was the first Premier League game of the season, and there's been periods this season where we have fallen into, even though we've had 4 defenders on the pitch, the areas of the pitch one of the 4 defenders occupies is never actually in defence. It tends to be in the midfield, and I'm not even talking about just there when they invert. I'm talking about what White's done, what Timber's done, and like I said already, the Everton game where it was literally just 2 defenders in Saliba, Gabriel as the 2, and then it was Rice with Zinchenko and Timber either side of him. So I can really see a lot of layers being added to this Arsenal team next season. And I think the key thing for me, it's versatility. When you're competing against that Man City team where, yeah, you just have to go back and look at the graphic, like look at the star-studded lineup they've got. You can't compete by just having £100 million profile that is a specialist that does one thing. I think that's where we're batting different. You've got your Jesuses in there that can hopefully cover all 3 in the front 3. You've got a Havertz there that can make runs from midfield, can also play fantastically as a number 9. You've got your smart squad signings in terms of Trossard's, Kivior's, Tomiyasu's. Timber will obviously have a big part to play. So I think we just have to bat a bit differently against this side. But the one thing as well in terms of rotation, I do think that when I say I want to share the load more, I don't want Saliba, Gabriel rested for 6-7 games next season. It's literally just 1 or 2. That's it. Like, just in order to compete with this Man City team, I'm sure it was Scott from the Arsenal Vision podcast did a really good piece on like the data behind it. That Liverpool team that went toe to toe with City, that Liverpool team that went and beat City, they had all of their key players fit. I wish I had the data for this pod, but they had everyone kind of going for it the majority of the time. You need your core fit most of the time to be able to get to that level. So for me, it's not about going and changing every week. It's just about 1 or 2 or 3 times in the calendar. Can you take a Saliba out and with your tactical layers offset it? It's not a case of you're not going to get someone to come in and play like William Saliba, but tactically, can you get something different by changing it from a 3-2 to a 2-3? Can you change it by having 3 instead of the 3 defenders in that game? You play 4. I think there's a variety of ways to do things, and again, like I said earlier in the episode, I think it's let the fixture calendar dictate when you rotate as well. I don't think there's a point in kind of planning for things going wrong. I think you deal with each game with the best information you've got at the time. And like that Luton game we saw, with the information we had at the time, that was the ideal opportunity to rotate. And there has been other times where we've had the opportunities to do it, but squad availability hasn't quite been there. But hopefully we can supplement that with further profiles. So yeah, on to questions, comments. Yeah, quite a lot in here. So let me know what you all think. Yeah, chuck any questions in my way if you've got anything. Let me know what you thought of this as well. Obviously a bit of a different type of episode. Apologies if it was too rambly. Like I said, I hadn't really planned for this. I had like data that I wanted to go through and thoughts in my head, which I'm glad I've done this because I hadn't really formed my opinions until I spoke through them. So yeah, let me know what you think. Uncle Mike said, agree on Branthwaite. Think he'd be a great addition. Did I say Branthwaite? Yeah, I think he'd be a cool addition, to be fair, but I don't know. I want a left back in defence. I know everyone thinks Timber, Tomiyasu, Kiwi, or Zinchenko are all left backs. I think Tomiyasu will our starting right back for a whole year. Timber, I'm not. Even though he started left back in the Community Shield, I think he's equally him and Tomiyasu. I can see them on either side. I think a specialist left back, like I can't shake this idea that can we get a Ben White for the left, someone that can go inside and out. I think that would take our whole dynamic to a new level. So, yeah, if I'm being honest, yeah, I'm not sure about Branthwaite for me personally. Tommy Gunn's in. Afternoon, everyone. Nima's in. Hope you're good, boss. Hope everything's well. Tommy Gunn as a left 8 would be interesting. Yeah, that's exactly when I talk about like, is it going to be a Bruno or is it going to be a Musiala? Like Eze obviously fits that Musiala mold, right? And I think that's something that would be phenomenal. And again, it's the profile of what can that bring us in midfield. It's the ability to dribble, carry, attract players to you. I feel like it's almost like I think Arsenal has a level to go up to be an even better transition team in attack. I think we're very good at our build-up and our structure, but can we chin teams a little bit more through the course of 90? And I'm talking very much in the kind of big Champions League games here. And something as well, like, you look at the games where we really struggled to score from open play. It was like Bayern Munich away. I never really thought we were going to score, if I'm being honest. And I was there. Like, the feeling I had was not like, oh yeah, we're going to go do this. Anfield, Liverpool away. Like, did we really think we were going to go and do too much once the game started? Great point. Like, not dismissing that, but there's another level we can go up now, right? Like, I don't doubt we all think we can beat like 95% of the league. But for me, it's now like, can we go and beat Liverpool at Anfield? Can we go to the Etihad and win? Can we go to Bayern Munich away and win? And I think that's the profiles of like your Ezes, your Musialas, a superstar forward that can contribute to that group in terms of pace, power, tenacity. That's what I think we're like, the ability to generate moments. I think that's what we really have to add. And that's where I think we'll go up a level. Uncle Mike, he likes Fofana at Monaco. Yeah, I've not seen too much of him, to be fair. I need to do some YouTube scouting. Thoughts on if Bowen is the right quality to rotate with Saka? I think we can do better, mate. Honestly, I think, yeah. And then his next one is someone like Rafinha. Even that, I think Rafinha is almost like too specialist. I think I want someone that can contribute in all areas of the front three. Like, even Martinelli, I think we've seen him on the right sometimes. Like, it's okay. But someone like Rafinha, I just look at as bit too specialist, maybe. But it wouldn't be a bad thing if we then got Saka, Rafinha that can do amazing things on the right, Trossard, Martinelli on the left, Havertz, Jesus, Trossard. I think Trossard's better centrally than he is on the left, personally. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not too keen on Bowen or Rafinha. I really, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm biased, but I think we are of a level now where we are shopping in Harrods. I really think, like, I think we're gonna. You can't be confident in what we'll do in the window, but I'm confident that the players that Arsenal, Arteta and Edu are actually looking at are like elite profiles, and I think that's the thing I love about the way we do our business. You can tell they don't sign people and like, oh, he's a great number 6, he's a great number 8. Like, look at Havertz. They saw such unique profiles that he could add to this team that would take us to another level, and that's what I think they're doing. Like, I'm so confident that what we end up with at the end of the transfer window, 80% of us would not have considered it, and that's why I wanted to discuss that kind of tactical element on this slide that I've got back up here. Like, I think there's layers that we're going to go to which we would not have predicted. Like, I remember the summer we got Zinchenko. We all knew we needed a number 9. We went and got Jesus. None of us were calling for an inverted fullback when Zinchenko came in. This season, I think a lot of us knew like a Declan Rice would have obviously changed the game for us. But were we crying out for a Kai Havertz? Don't think so. But it's changed the way we see things, right? So I think we'll be very surprised. But one thing Uncle Mike does say is, yeah, they're both Prem proven and something to prove, and that's something that is very true in terms of Premier League proven. Like, Arteta and Edu clearly do value and rate that a lot when they look at shopping in the market. So we'll see. Final couple before we wrap up. Tommy Gunn, that's true. I'd like someone with electric pace though, and in Edu and Arteta we trust. Final couple. What do you think our budget will be this year? How much will we generate in sales? Oh, I didn't want to do that question about generating sales. I think we will generate less in sales than everyone thinks, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm not going to go and do individual player valuations, but I think by the numbers I see on Twitter and touted around, I think people will be disappointed. But our budget, I need to do my homework on this because I'm sure I read somewhere, like, obviously it was our first year with Champions League revenue, right? It's now 2 seasons back to back, finishing second, so you obviously get money for that. Yeah, I don't have too much knowledge on like our commercial deals and everything, but I'm sure I read that we're in a very healthy position, and obviously a lot of what we did last year in terms of Rice being amortized over a long contract, Raya being a loan and then buying this summer. I think we're in a healthy spot, and that's what I would not be surprised if we went and spent the same amount we did last summer, and it being a split in similar chunks of like one player for 30 mil, one player for 35, one for 50 to 70, one that's 70 to 90 to 100. Would not be surprised if it's something like that. And then final one before I get out here, realistic dream signing. I would love Isaac from my mate Lee. It's interesting. I feel like people's dream signings are like, do you want a midfielder or a forward? For me, I think there's a variety of profiles we can get in midfield that we won't feel a level drop. Like, I don't think midfield is a weak area for me, as ironic as it sounds when you look back a few slides ago and I was talking about the numbers and stuff. I think there's a lot of players that can come in and add to the group and add quality and the level not drop for good value prices. The ability to generate high quality moments in the final third, I think, is so rare and much harder to find. And that's why, for me, I think, realistic dream signing is in the forward group, and it would probably be an Isaac for me. I think he's someone that can obviously play across the front three. I think he's someone that just fits like a glove. And again, like Bruno's release clause is 100 million, right? There's talk that Isaac would cost 100 million. I would spend 100 million on Isaac more than I would on Bruno any day of the week, personally. So yeah, I think Isaac would be mine. But like I said, the thing I want to drum home is I don't get, okay, I'm not going to tell anyone what to do, but like, it's not for me getting attached to specific names. Like the Benjamin Sesko links, I saw it. It's like, cool. If he comes, I can see him absolutely adding value. If he doesn't, we'll get someone else that can. Like, that is very much where I'm in. And to the point where I don't really engage with so many rumors anymore. Because I remember, so I was on, in 2013, I was with Lee in Zante. We went on a lad's holiday. And I remember going to the flipping internet cafe to check if we'd signed Gonzalo Higuain. So long are the days where I get wedded to a specific player now, because I think modern football, especially the way Arsenal play, it's about getting attributes that can do specific things in certain areas of the pitch more than it is about, are they a right winger? Are they a left winger? Are they a 6? Are they an 8? I think it's all about attributes, profiles, zones, and quality. These are the fucking standards. So, thanks a lot, guys. I really enjoyed that. Thanks for keeping me company in the chat. Let me know what you think. Feedback would be appreciated on this. Obviously, very different. No plan, no structure. Just a ramble. But yeah, help me formulate my opinions. One thing I'm confident in is this recruitment process that Arsenal have in place. Like, you can't control what happens in terms of the players that arrive in the door, but you can control the types of players that you approach and talk to. And I'm so confident, especially in Arteta's kind of tactical ability, his ability to proactively see a problem, proactively see something that can take us up a level. I'm confident we'll get the right people in that can take us up a level, win us the bloody Premier League. I think we can do it next year. I really do. Get us further in Europe. Let us chin a Bayern Munich. Let us actually wobble them and go and win a domestic cup. I really think we'll get it right. But yeah, fingers crossed. And I don't know what's next. We might do some Euros stuff. Obviously, it starts tomorrow, Germany against Scotland. My dark horses, if they're even dark horses, I feel like they're the hipster pick, is Portugal to win it. But yeah, we'll see. I'm dabbling with the idea of doing some Euro stuff. But yeah, thanks again, guys. If you're new here and you've liked this sort of stuff, please consider subscribing to the channel, dropping the stream a like. If you're on audio, giving it a 5-star review means a lot. And yeah, sharing it with your friends. Get us out there if you've enjoyed it. Yeah, thanks, guys. Up the Arsenal.